One of the amazing things about sidereal astrology is how much it informs what's really great for me in my love life. And today I want to share some of those indicators for you and talk a bit about how astrology is the best companion and playbook for your love life. My name is Stacy Patrice. Welcome back to my channel. Please like, subscribe, and comment after you've watched the video for more engagement and interaction before the next video. um, I rose today with a consciousness of play. And play in the yogic tradition is called Leela play. The idea that you can gamify or be joyous or childlike in your day-to-day activities. I like to call being frivolous, and how that is still a learning application. A lot of times, people will think of play as something you can only do when you're done working. But what about when your play is connected to your work? And what about when your work is about you working on your life? So, this interconnection of concepts, as always, yoking the yogic tradition inside of the astrology so that those concepts that are on your chart start to come to life. And one of the places that I have always looked, I've been a matchmaker since I was like anybody who knows me in grade school, they would tell you I've been a matchmaker since probably like fourth, fifth grade. Maybe, maybe fifth grade to just be solid and just say when it really, really kicked off. But I've always been a matchmaker. I've never been afraid to talk to anyone. And I would see things about people and then see things about other people and be like, "Ooh." Like the energy, the match. And I still am like that to this day. Um, but on a non-professional level, I was just very curious about how people's energies would play with each other, or like what the consciousness one person would have about themselves and how they might be shy and not want to say anything, not knowing that this other person was really all about them already. And all they had to do is make themselves present for that communication to happen. And I didn't start any trouble, but I definitely could tell a match a mile away. And it wasn't until I got, even older in my years that I realized, like, this is really good space for me to look at, like, what it is that I'm interested in. Since I'm doing all this matching for everybody else, where are my matches? What are the things I'm interested in? And also, have I already experienced it? Because in my inner experience, I had a lot of these different challenges. I'll just say challenges in relationships, as I'm sure you and many of us have had. But I also knew that my challenges in relationships were guiding me towards where my soul wanted to go. And so if I was really drawn to something, there's really nothing you could say to stop me from being drawn, because that's what the, late teens and the 20s are about. It's about just, like the magnet, the I think I have it figured out and I'm going to act on it. And then when you pass that decade, it starts to be like, I'm not really sure if the way that I am approaching this is really like what I feel. Maybe I'm just in a habit of used to doing it, but I don't really know that it's how I feel. And then when you pass that decade and so forth and so on, it becomes a clarifying of what it is. And then by the time you're in that decade, you really know what you want. You really know what you want, and you're not settling, and you're not and even if you're already in a relationship, even if you're already in a love relationship, I'm talking about not just matches, but also people who are already existing in relationships. You definitely start to know what you want by the time you have hit 4 decades. You're like, okay, come on. Like, this is not working anymore. This is a dinosaur. Let's make this extinct. Okay. Like, let's not continue this. Let's move forward in a different way of loving each other. And so we're revolutionizing love. And I think that's what the world is going through right now. We're going through a love revolution. We don't call it that. A lot of people are just saying, I'm single, I'm not interested, I'm centering myself. All of this is language of a revolution. All of this is language of, we're not ready to act on the things that we're learning about ourselves yet. We're just keeping them with ourselves. And then as we start to process and move forward, there will be a coming together again. And so, what I want you to do is to be ready for the coming together again if you are not already together. And the coming together again comes from knowing yourself. So, the first thing about your astrology chart, and particularly your sidereal astrology chart, is how well do you know yourself? Can you look through your chart and see all the things you want to know about yourself? If you follow pop astrology, they'll have you looking at a certain planet and saying, okay, like, Jupiter is your husband, or, Venus is the feminine, Jupiter is the masculine, or they'll tell you to just look at whatever's going on in the seventh house, and that will give you everything you need to know. But I'm going to challenge that perspective. I'm going to say you need to know your entire chart. Do not go looking at your chart just for love. Looking for love without the context of the placements around it and the entire significators and how they are boomeranging in your chart is a setup. It's a setup. Looking at the entire chart, and I can tell you this from experience, looking at the entire chart is the way that you want to go. And you want to be able to know yourself looking at your entire chart. Someone reading it for you is on a time frame, and they are, looking at how much they can tell you in a certain amount of time and trying to get that done. So a single session trying to just figure that out is one thing. It usually takes, at least in my experience and practice, it takes me several sessions. So one of the things that I've been notorious to do is to work with one person and then work with another person and then work with them together. And that's the way in which I can kind of like bridge all that's happening and explain them to each other, and they can make whatever decisions they want to make from there. I think knowing your entire chart and particularly knowing how you view the world. So we're starting right there at the logna. We're starting right at the ascendant. Knowing how you view the world is so important. Let's not skip past that, and then also like what else is interacting with that view? What else is either slowing down, starting up, engaging, amplifying, softening? What else is happening with that view? Where is the conflict with that view? Of course, we're looking at, as we move around to that fourth house of home. Of course, we're looking at the seventh house, and also the fifth house is very important for, some of those saucier matters. But then we're also, looking at, typically the 12th house. I like to look at the 12th house to just see, the ways in which you need to evolve and are going to evolve. But I think what's most important that I'm picking up on and I want to share with you is looking at it all the way around is already your hero's journey unfolding right before your eyes. And if you don't know yourself first, you will meet aspects of yourself, literally, in other people. And when they reflect back those aspects, you could say, oh, that's not what I want, or I'm not interested in that, or I'm about to be out, without understanding at all that those aspects being reflected back to you are areas that you will have to work on. So you'll meet them again in the next person and the next person and the next person. I'm not suggesting you go out here and date for development. I'm not saying go out here and find individuals and say, oh, I want to be in a relationship with them so that I can develop myself. But I am saying that your relationships are developing yourself. And there are certain journeys I'm sure you're willing to go on and others you're not. Your sidereal astrology map is your way of understanding what some of those aspects are and how they show up. And so when I look at my map, for instance, I will see that there is a very strong need to communicate. I will see that there is a very strong tendency to teach. I will also see that, the kind of lifestyle I like to live, and this is me looking at my nakshatras a bit, the kind of lifestyle that I like to live, that has to be in place. That is not a, maybe one day, possibly. It is there from jump according to my chart. So there is no chance that I'm going to try and work my way up with someone, although I may be open and compassionate to a person I meet who is working their way up. That doesn't indicate that that is the relationship for me that's most compatible to my mission. I want y'all to hear that. I'm not talking about personal preference and, compassionate heart. I'm talking about for your soul mission. You need to understand clearly your soul mission, because your soul mission is what you are here to do, and who you select in life is either going to pair to complement on that soul mission, or is going to pair and to distract from that soul mission, or to detract or somehow divide the focus of that. And so, no, there's no ideal relationship. And yes, there are plenty of things that we do outside of our work, but this is not about work. This is about your soul mission. That is your work, not your career, not your finances, not your sponsor. We're not talking about any of that. I'm talking about the way in which you being on your soul mission, which may or may not be aligned with the work that you do at this time in your life, is important to know because if you are trying to pair based on your career alone and you are not pairing based on the knowledge of your chart that highlights what are those areas to best pay attention to. So, like, of course, your MC, um, and that comes from, a more tropical perspective. So, of course, you're MC, but also, we're talking about the way in which you work. We're talking about the people who benefit your work. So, I've talked in previous videos about how important the 11th house is. And then also, like, in my estimation, like your ninth house might be pulling in the kind of people in your life that you are interested in. So if you are like me, you're a sapiosexual, then you need to be looking at your chart to figure out like what are those levels and layers. It just has to be there. It just has to be there. It's not a question about, is someone nice? Is someone kind? Can they do services and things for me? That's beautiful. But I am here on a life mission, and that intelligence is so necessary in order to partner with me. And I've experienced this in real life as well. That intelligence is key. Like when you start to link up with what you have seen in your chart, it literally creates a physical reaction in your body. I know somebody out there knows what I'm talking about. When you have looked at your chart and you know yourself, and then you meet someone, that physical reaction you get is like spot on. It's a spark. It's more than attraction. It's a spark. It's like this spark that people talk about is like a match. It's like showing you there is a complete plug in, locked in match. And it could be in any area. If you don't have the consciousness behind it, it could be in any area. It could be a sensual match, it could be a money making match. It could be a, ooh, we would have fun and do life together on an adventure level match. But is that where you need to be matching from? Right? Because society would say, yeah, this is a good person for you. But again, your chart is going to really explore that. And I would say the first step you need to do before any love revolution solidifies in your life is to look at your entire chart and really analyze it as you study yourself and figure out who is it that I need to be that maybe I haven't been yet. Maybe the people I've met that I thought were matches met me in a space where I wasn't actualized. So I can't even actualize the kind of relationship I want because I'm expecting someone to bring that to me instead of me actually being about that life. So if you're going to spend time being single and spend time, doing that, then spend your time being single, analyzing your chart and getting it ready. In Sidereal, one of the things I like to look at most personally is the eighth house and the 12th house. I need to know how deep we are going to go. I'm talking about my chart. I'm not talking about anyone else's chart. I'm talking about I look at my chart to know how deep we are going to go. How deep are we going to go in connection and reflection? Because those are two places where I get that for a lot of people, those are invisible places. But for me, my inner language is that those are very visible places. And I need to see that in someone else before I would even engage in anything that would be beyond a physical attraction. And a physical attraction is nice. I can look at a picture, nice. But it's important to kind of get those elements going where you start to feel those other aspects. So I'm saying the entire chart. I'm saying the entire sidereal chart. Um, and you can look at those planetary places. That's fine. You can look at those certain houses. A lot of people say, fifth, seventh, definitely your first house, but your fifth, your fourth, fifth, seventh, and on occasion, I've heard people talk about the 11th house and as it relates to relationships, because that's relationships and groups of people in general. And sometimes you can see some indicators there that give you an idea of like what the vibe is. But I also know that I am looking always to my nakshatras. I am always looking for those soul encoding details. And so when you start to study your chart and you start to look at the hand that you have, the lifetime credit that you brought in, and you start to think about who you are as a whole, as a composite person, whether other people can see it or not. Your relationships and your choices will start to come alive when you find and meet and uh, assess matches based on those aspects of your chart where your soul is present, where your soul is speaking in emphasis. So yes, where your planetary placements are related to your soul, but also where your nakshatras are. Also, what kind of, and the nakshatras are really important, okay? They will tell you, like they will tell you. Um, I know in my case, there's a certain personality that I have that may be attractive to a lot of people that I am not attracted to as it relates to partnering. But again, it's my life mission to work with people. So I always say you have to know the difference between who gets a date and who gets an invoice. You have to know you have to know the difference between those because sometimes when you think of them as all the same, you find yourself in precarious situations and that's just all just all that is, okay? So looking at your whole chart, studying your whole chart, how can you do that? You can start, you know, of course, in my Sidereal self-study course to the East, which is going to start back up in the spring. So stay tuned and stay subscribed to my channel as well as to my website to get more information about that at stacypatrice.com. But definitely, your own sense of study starts with just knowing how you look at yourself, just knowing what your chart indicates about your style of love. Your style of love is complex. It's not at all one placement. It's speaking through your entire chart. But what I feel when I look around someone's entire chart and I look at each placement, especially the ones I'm drawn to, which I do a lot in consultations, like, something's over here that I need to express. When I look at the entire chart, what I am then realizing is that there is an energy that sweeps over the entire chart that I am translating and sharing back. This can also happen with human design. Not as specific for me. But this can also happen with human design because I love human design as well. And for those of you that are into human design, this can also happen there. But I would say, yes, your entire chart, but really, really look at, more than what's aspecting the seventh house. Look at those soul indicators. Look at those karmic indicators. Again, for me, fifth, fourth, fifth, eighth, ninth, 12th. Those are my favorite. And then, of course, Jupiter, Saturn. Sure, I'll look at Venus and Mars. They're part of the equation, but Jupiter and Saturn really stand out for me. And that Rahu Ketu axis. Yeah. And then, of course, the rising, which I mentioned, that ascendant, where we start with our orientation is. And then like fill in the blanks with, looking at the relationships between them, the lords, all of that. So it's a very complex thing. I do these for people. If you would like a consultation in this way and learn your chart through the lens of your love language, go ahead and send me a message on my website from the Soul Centric consultation page, and let's talk about it. Let's talk about how I can best serve you and how much of studying of your chart you need in that service. All right. And other than that, happy hunting for your own style, your own language, and liberty. And I look forward to talking to you all in the next video. Okay. Have an awesome day. All right. Peace.